Actually, it's really a core value of the History brand, really, since we launched, that we were very down to earth, not telling people what to think, just putting the facts out there, let them draw their own conclusions. So this whole authenticity, honesty, being very matter of fact is part of our DNA. I think it's really important for brands, and we've heard this today from many of the speakers, not to be using social media as a purely marketing tactic. It's basically a conversation that your brand fans are in with each other, whether or not you're engaging, quite frankly. So when you do put yourself in that conversation, it's really important to just become part of their conversation and not try to run the conversation. We've always been big believers at History in that whole Henry Jenkins concept of transmedia storytelling. So we create a lot of exclusive content that's found on our different platforms that's not necessarily repurposing of the same content. There's a hunger to see full-length episodes of some of our content, so we do provide that and window that appropriately. But we're also creating, for example, for History.com, we have something called the Ultimate History Quiz, which is something that's a brand within itself, multi-platform. It's been basically growing since we first launched it in connection with America, the Story of Us, which was a big programming event that we marketed heavily last year. But now it's gone on as a sustainable, sort of ever-growing program. And we'll keep infusing kind of new buzz and energy into it. For example, we have a Civil War week coming up basically a little bit later this year. It's the beginning of the 150th anniversary of the Civil War. And we're going to have a film about Gettysburg that Tony and Ridley Scott have created for us, which is a very much sort of in the experience type film. So we'll have a separate kind of new flavor of the Ultimate History Quiz just around the Civil War. And then we're also putting that out right now as an online student contest that teachers and parents and students can engage in. So we basically try to create kind of exclusive, separate types of content that are appropriate and sought after by users of various platforms. But then there's an overriding kind of content promise that it folds into that makes it cohesive with what we're doing with our brand. We haven't really started that particular flavor of push yet. That's going to be Memorial Day. Basically that film airs. So the more traditional media, and I'm actually putting some of the digital media under that umbrella as well, we would start that basically 2 weeks and then get it to a fever pitch a week out. But we're starting in social, and we're starting particularly with this school sort of student play. I mean, that's actually up and running now. So we just keep feeding kind of new information into what we're doing, but the fever pitch of it kind of hits as it gets like a couple weeks out. I feel really good about what we've been doing vis-a-vis what the speakers are saying you need to do. For example, we have a new season of Swamp People, a series that's set in the bayous in Louisiana. And last week, for the 2 days kind of leading up to the premiere, we actually had around town alligators coming out of the sewers. It was something we worked out with the city. We had maybe, I don't know, 18 of them around town, in addition to food trucks with chefs from Louisiana cooking Cajun food. And it just exploded on Twitter. It was so cool to see because basically they were so lifelike that we knew people even called the ASPCA and thought that we'd put like real alligators. You could just sort of see their tail end, so to speak, coming out of the sewer, which was, the top of it was a little bit open. And it just did exactly what we wanted to do, which was to get buzz going for Swamp People, but not be the traditional kind of banner ad, et cetera, et cetera. But we did do a whole homepage takeover for NewYorkYankees.com, and we do that kind of thing. The banner ads we're not as fond of. The same thing all the speakers are saying today, that it's so easy to bypass it, and unless you're really offering some value to link to, it's not that motivational for a consumer. I'm a fan of reskinning the sites and basically having some sort of video content that isn't the typical commercial per se, that a consumer is really going to want and engage with. And we have a pretty good click-through rate on that type of element. Awareness is really not that important anymore, believe it or not. It's really more the passion that people have for you. In other words, to use sort of marketing jargon, it's not enough to be, it's important to be well respected and trusted. That's all really important, particularly in terms of going into new directions and having permission to explore those. But you can have that kind of respect and trust and low brand insistence where people will not go out of their way on a daily basis to find your particular brand. So I think it's super, super important to have passion and the idea that people will seek you out. Now, in the media world, you're never going to be the only flavor that anyone is going to choose, but you want to be in their top set of choices, and you want to be where they go when they aren't sure what they want to watch or consume, but they know when they come to you there'll be something that they will probably like. So I think it's really important to build passion for your brand.